At home, Jenna McCardy set the dinner table, expecting her husband Patrick to walk through the door any minute. Their 5-year-old son Liam was eager to share his latest drawing, a picture of his dad, the town's beloved police officer. But the knock that came that night wasn't Patrick. Instead, it was news that shattered their world. What began as a simple stop on the highway had spiraled into a tragic fall that no one saw coming. Before we jump into this heartfelt story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you enjoy stories like this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another uplifting tale. The late afternoon sun dipped low over Carroll, Iowa, on March 4th, 2021, casting a golden haze across the flat expanse of farmland and quiet streets, the kind of light that softened the edges of a town where everyone knew your name. Officer Patrick McCardy eased his Carroll Police Department cruiser down Main Street, its white frame humming past the brick storefronts, hardware store, diner, a barber shop with a faded pole. At 32, Patrick was a fixture here. 6 years on the force, his red hair a nod to his Irish roots, his green eyes steady under the brim of his cap, his broad frame filling the driver's seat with a calm that came from routine. The radio crackled softly. Country tunes, static, a dispatcher's drone, a soundtrack to a shift he loved for its predictability. Patrick adjusted his rear view, catching a glimpse of himself, freckles dusting his nose, a jaw set firm but kind, a man who'd traded a college football scholarship for a badge after his dad, a retired cop, passed. "Keep it simple," his old man had said, and Patrick had married Jenna, a third-grade teacher with a laugh that lit up rooms, fathered Liam, now 5, a tow-headed kid who'd inherited his grin. Their split level on Oak Street waited, Jenna's lasagna cooling, Liam's toy cars scattered. A life he'd built block by block, a cop's steady world in a town of 10,000 where the biggest crimes were DUIs and the occasional barn theft. He turned onto Highway 30, the rural stretch flanking Carroll, cornfields stretching golden green, the cruiser's tires humming a rhythm he knew by heart. "Unit 214, check in," he radioed, his voice a warm drawl, dispatch replying, "All quiet, Pat. How's the coffee?" He chuckled, lifting a thermos. "Black, strong, Jenna's brew. Keeping me sharp, Amy." The shift was his, 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. A dance of traffic stops, wellness checks, chats with farmers over fence lines. "Routines, my friend," he'd tell Jenna, her teasing reply. "You're boring, McCardy." A joke that warmed him, a truth he leaned on. The dashboard clock ticked to 5:45 p.m., dusk creeping in, the sky bruising purple as he pulled into the Casey's General Store lot. A gas station hub, neon buzzing, pickups parked haphazard. He stepped out, boots scuffing gravel, his uniform crisp, blue shirt, badge glinting, nodding to Old Man Peterson pumping gas. "Evening, Pat? Keeping us safe?" the farmer asked, his voice a gravelly hum. "Trying, Pete. Any trouble?" Patrick grinned, his hand resting easy on his belt, the Glock a weight he rarely drew, Carroll's piece a gift he guarded. "Just the cows," Peterson laughed, and Patrick tipped his cap. "Good enough." Inside he grabbed a Snickers, Liam's favorite, a treat for later, swapping small talk with cashier Mandy. "Heard the diner's got new pie," her chatter a thread of normalcy. "Jen'll drag me there," he said, paying, the bell jangling as he stepped back to the cruiser, the night settling cool, stars pricking the sky. He slid in, unwrapping the bar, the chocolate a quick bite, his mind drifting, Liam's bedtime story, Jenna's hug, a shift winding down, a life he'd stitched tight. "One more loop," he muttered, pulling onto 30, the highway stretching dark, a quiet he savored. The radio crackled sharp, Amy's voice cutting through. "Unit 214, heads up, got a tip." Patrick straightened. "Go ahead," his tone shifting, the Snickers set aside. "Dennis Gear, 29, warrant out of Illinois, theft, last seen in Carroll. Gray sedan, 07 Ford Focus, might be with Tommy Reed's local 25. Plates partial, Charlie Alpha November." Patrick's brow furrowed. "Geyer, sounds familiar. Reed's, Jimmy's kid." Amy confirmed. "Yeah, troublemaker, not big time. Spotted near 30 an hour ago." He nodded. "On it. Routine check." His voice calm, his gut tightening, a flicker of something off routine's edge. He knew Tommy, high school dropout, petty thefts, a kid who'd drifted since his dad's mill closed. Nothing heavy, but gear was new. An outsider with a warrant, a wrinkle in Carol's fabric. Illinois, long way to run, he mused, scanning the road. Pickups, a tractor, no gray sedan yet. His hand brushed the dashcam, flicking it on. Just in case, a habit his dad drilled. Record it, trust it. The cruiser rolled west, headlights slicing dusk, the fields a blur, his mind ticking. Warrant runner, probably nothing, but watch the passenger. Another one? He quipped to the empty cab, a half laugh masking the prickle. 6 years, no real scares, but instinct hummed low. At home, Jenna tucked Liam in. "Daddy's catching bad guys," she said, his giggle. "He's the best." A warmth Patrick felt miles away. She checked her phone. No text yet. His norm after a stop. A weight she'd grown used to. A trust in his steadiness. On 30, Patrick slowed near a grain elevator, eyes sharp. Gray sedan, his radio quiet, the night holding its breath. "Come on, Gear. Where you at?" he muttered, the tip a thread pulling tight, a shift slipping from quiet to something he couldn't name. The cruiser turned east, dusk deepening, the Snickers melting on the seat, a treat he'd never share tonight. Amy's voice lingered. "Be safe, Pat." A dispatcher's prayer he'd always answered, a routine he'd built his life on, a calm before a storm he didn't see brewing, a dawn he'd fall into by morning's end. 6:30 p.m. The radio crackled soft, country fading, Amy's voice gone. His focus narrowing as he scanned plates, pickup, minivan, then a gray '07 Ford Focus, partial match, Charlie Alpha November, easing slow near a gravel turnoff. "There you are," Patrick muttered, flipping on his lights, red and blue pulsing, the sedan pulling to the shoulder, tires crunching, dust swirling in the beams. He radioed, "Unit 214, traffic stop, Highway 30, mile 15, gray Ford, possible warrant suspect." Patrick stepped out, boots scuffing gravel, his uniform crisp, blue shirt, badge glinting, his hand resting easy on his belt, the Glock a familiar weight he rarely drew. The air was cool, sharp with cornstalks and gasoline, dusk deepening as he approached the driver's side, flashlight in hand, beam steady. Behind the wheel, Tommy Reeds, 25, slouched, lean, sandy hair under a frayed cap, his blue eyes darting, hands twitching on the wheel. Beside him, Dennis Gewer sat stiff, 29, wiry, dark hair cropped short, hazel eyes avoiding Patrick's, his denim jacket bulging slightly at the pocket. "Evening, guys," Patrick said, his voice warm but firm. "How's it going?" Tommy swallowed. Fine, officer. What's up?" His tone high, nervous. A kid Patrick knew. Jimmy Reeds' son, small-time trouble, nothing big till now. Patrick's gaze slid to Dennis. "Hey, Dennis. Heard you might have a warrant out of Illinois. Hate to break it to you, bud." Dennis smirked, a crooked twist. "News to me, man. Wrong guy." His voice low, edged, his hands shifting in his lap. Patrick's gut tightened. Not Tommy, the passenger, the one dispatch flagged, the one who didn't fit Carol's quiet. "Got your ID on you?" he asked, casual but sharp, his flashlight catching Dennis's twitch. "Nah, left it somewhere," Dennis said, his smirk holding, his eyes flicking to Tommy, a signal Patrick clocked but couldn't read. "All right. Sorry then," Patrick said, his tone steady. "Gotta step out till we ID you. Hands where I can see 'em." He stepped back, hand on his radio. "Unit 214. Passenger, no ID. Confirming warrant." His voice low, Amy crackling. "Running it. Dennis Gear, theft, Illinois, active." Tommy's hands gripped the wheel. "He's cool, officer. Just chilling." His words rushed. Dennis cutting in. "What's the deal?" "I'm good." His smirk fading, his hand hovering near his jacket. "You got anything on you?" Patrick asked, his flashlight steady, the bulge in Dennis's pocket. A wallet, a phone, something heavier. Prickling his spine. "Nah, nothing," Dennis said, too quick, his eyes darting again, Tommy nodding subtle. A cue, a plan brewing. "Any weapons or anything like that?" Patrick pressed, his hand inching to his Glock, routine slipping, the night tilting. "What's up with you?" Dennis snapped, his voice rising. I'm clean. Chill out. His right hand dipping, then rising empty. A tease Patrick didn't miss. Step out. Now, Patrick ordered, his tone hardening. Let's sort this. Dennis froze. Why me? His smirk gone, his body tensing, Tommy's breath hitching. He's fine, man. A plea Patrick ignored. Out. Hands up, Patrick said, stepping closer, his flashlight beam locking on Dennis's hands, the bulge a shadow he couldn't shake. Gun, knife. His pulse ticking up, 6 years of calm fraying. Dennis muttered, "This is bullshit," his voice low, frantic now, his eyes locking with Tommy's. A nod, a flicker, and Patrick's hand hovered. "What's that?" "Step out, man," his shout firm, the sedan a cage teetering on edge. Tommy's hand shook. "Just do it, Den," his voice cracking, Dennis's jaw tightening. "All right." Jesus. His left hand reaching for the door, slow, deliberate, his right still low. A bluff, a play Patrick couldn't call. The night pressed in, cornfield silent, a pickup rumbling past, dusk a shroud as the door creaked open an inch, then stopped. "All the way. Out," Patrick barked, his Glock unholstered now, low at his side. "Anything on you? Tell me." His voice a steel thread, the stop no longer routine. The passenger a threat he'd targeted right. At home, Jenna set the table, lasagna cooling, Liam coloring cops and robbers. Her phone silent. Patrick's text overdue, a trust she held steady. On 30, the sedan's door hung, Dennis's smirk twitching back. "You're pushy, huh?" His taunt a spark, his hand shifting, bulge or bluff. Tommy's eyes wide. "Den?" A warning cut short. Patrick's radio buzzed. "Amy. Warrant confirmed. Gear, Dennis. Proceed with caution." A beat too late. The stop a fuse lit. A dawn he'd chase into chaos by night's end. Dennis Gear, 29, sat rigid in the passenger seat, his wiry frame coiled, dark hair cropped short, hazel eyes flickering with a mix of panic and defiance under the flashlight's glare. His denim jacket bulged at the pocket. Gun, knife, a bluff, his smirk gone, replaced by a twitch as he stalled. "Why me, man? This is nuts." His voice low, frantic, his left hand hovering near the door, his right dipping low, teasing the bulge Patrick couldn't ignore. Tommy Reeds, 25, gripped the wheel beside him, his lean face pale under a frayed cap, blue eyes darting, nerves cracking. "He's cool, officer. Just chill." His plea thin, a kid caught in a web he didn't weave. "Anything on you? Tell me now." Patrick pressed, his flashlight steady, his Glock rising slightly, the stop spiraling from routine to a tightrope he walked alone. "Nah, nothing," Dennis snapped, too quick, his eyes locking with Tommy's. A flicker, a nod subtle enough Patrick missed it, his focus on that hand, that bulge. "Step out. Let's sort this," Patrick ordered, his tone hardening, stepping closer, the sedan's door an inch wider, Dennis's breath hitching. "You're pushy. Back off." His taunt a spark, his right hand shifting, empty, then not. A game Patrick couldn't read. "Out! Now!" Patrick barked, his voice cutting the dusk. The highway quiet, cornfields still, a distant tractor's hum fading. Tommy's hands trembled. "Den, just do it," his voice breaking. A plea Dennis ignored, his jaw tightening. "This is bullshit." His mutter frantic now, his eyes darting. Patrick's gun, the open road, Tommy's fear, a plan brewing in the whiskey haze from last night's bar crawl. "Any weapons?" Patrick asked, his beam catching Dennis's twitch. "Tell me, what's up?" Dennis smirked, faint. "What's up with you?" His right hand dipping again, then rising slow. A bluff, a tease. His left pushing the door wider. "All right, Jesus." His tone a lie, his body a spring wound tight. Patrick's radio buzzed, Amy's voice. "Unit 214, warrant confirmed. Gear, Dennis, proceed with caution." A warning he felt in his bones, his hand steady. "Step out. Hands where I can see 'em." His shout firm, the bulge a shadow he couldn't shake. "Gun? Something?" His pulse pounding, routine gone, a cop facing a cornered man. Dennis muttered fast. "Tommy, go." His voice a hiss, his eyes locked, Tommy nodding. A cue, a signal Patrick caught too late. "What?" Patrick snapped. "Out! Now!" His Glock up, his stance widening, the sedan a cage teetering, the night a fuse lit. Dennis moved, sudden, frantic, his left hand shoving the door wide, his right grabbing Tommy's shoulder. "Go now!" His yell sharp, his body twisting as he lunged across the console. Tommy flinched. "Den, what?" His words cut as Dennis shoved him hard. Out the driver's door, tumbling to the gravel. A staged fall. Tommy sprawling, hands up. "I'm out." A distraction, a shield to keep his friend clean. Patrick pivoted. "Stop! Hands up!" His shout splitting the air, his Glock tracking Dennis as he scrambled over the seat, hands on the wheel. "Move! Go!" A desperate bid, a drunk's chaos unfolding fast. "Stop the car!" Patrick roared, lunging forward, his flashlight dropping, beam spinning wild as he grabbed the doorframe, the sedan lurching, tires spinning, gravel flying, Dennis flooring it. "Get off!" His yell raw, his foot slamming gas, the Ford jolting free. Patrick's boots skidded. "Stop! Damn it!" His voice a howl, his hand clawing the handle, the car dragging, Tommy staggering up. "Den, no!" A friend's cry lost as the sedan peeled out, Patrick's grip slipping, his body yanked, a cop caught in a storm he'd sparked. The highway blurred, cornfields astreak, the sedan weaving, Dennis's smirk flashing. "Catch me!" His hands wild, the bulge a weight Patrick couldn't name, a threat he'd chase. "Unit 214, suspect fleeing." He yelled into his radio, tumbling back, rolling to his knees. Glock up, gray Ford, north on 30. His breath ragged, Tommy on the ground. "I didn't. He made me." A plea Patrick ignored. The cruiser's lights pulsing, the night shattering into chaos. A stop gone wrong, a fall looming near. At home, Jenna checked her phone. No text, lasagna cold, Liam asleep. "Daddy's late," she murmured, a trust teetering, a call she'd dread by dawn. On 30, Patrick stood. Son of a... His curse cut, the sedan's taillights fading, his steady world upended, a chase igniting, a bridge waiting, a dawn he'd meet in pain. The night swallowed Highway 30 near Carroll, Iowa, on March 5, 2021. Its black expanse broken only by the red and blue pulse of Officer Patrick McCardy's cruiser tearing north at 70 miles per hour. It was 6:50 p.m., minutes since Dennis Gear's gray '07 Ford Focus had lurched from the roadside stop, gravel still dusting Patrick's boots as he floored the gas, his steady world unraveling in the chase. At 32, Patrick was a cop pushed past routine. Red hair plastered under his cap, green eyes locked on taillights weaving ahead, his broad frame tense, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, Glock tossed to the seat, flashlight lost in the dust. "Unit 214, pursuit active, north on 30, he yelled into the radio, his voice raw, Amy crackling back. "Back up en route. Stay safe, Pat." Ahead, Dennis Guer gripped the sedan's wheel, his wiry frame hunched, dark hair slick with sweat, hazel eyes wild as he swerved at 75 miles per hour, the Ford's engine whining, tires screaming on asphalt. At 29, he was a man running blind. Illinois warrant, a gun in his jacket, a drunk's panic driving him. Tommy Reed's staged fall, a shield he'd burned to flee. "Catch me," he'd taunted, his smirk gone, replaced by a grimace as the cruiser's lights loomed in his rearview. Patrick's shouts, "Stop the car!" A ghost in his ears. The highway blurred, cornfields dark, a grain silo flashing past, his foot heavy, the bulge in his pocket a weight he'd forgotten in the haze. Patrick closed the gap, 200 feet, 150, his siren wailing, headlights slicing the night. "Stop the car, damn it!" His voice a roar over the engine's growl, his mind ticking. Warrant, armed, desperate. 6 years of calm shredded, a cop chasing a shadow he'd sparked. "Unit 214, suspect erratic, mile 18, he radioed. The sedan veering left, then right. A bridge overpass looming, a narrow span over a dry creek, steel rails glinting, a choke point he'd use. "Come on, Gear, stop!" he yelled, useless, his cruiser nudging 80. The Ford a wounded beast he'd corner, a threat he'd end. Dennis hit the bridge, the sedan fishtailing, tires squealing as he yanked the wheel. "No, no!" His shout a slur, his hand slipping, the gun rattling to the floorboard, a .38 he'd grabbed from a bar fight, a prop now lost. Patrick saw it, the swerve, the bridge. "He's mine!" And floored it, pulling alongside, then ahead, cutting the angle. Stop the car! His voice splitting the night, his cruiser skidding to block the lane, a wall of white and blue. He leapt out, boots slamming asphalt. Stop! Now! His Glock up, his stance wide, the bridge a stage, the sedan a bullet racing toward him. Dennis's eyes widened. Get off! His foot jamming gas, the Ford lurching, 60 miles per hour straight at Patrick, a drunk's defiance, a friend's shield twisted into ruin. Stop the car, Jesus! Patrick roared, diving left, then right, his body a shield as the sedan's grille loomed, metal glinting, horn blaring. A crash inevitable. The impact hit, front bumper slamming his hips, his frame airborne, twisting, a sickening crunch as he tumbled over the rail, a 20-foot drop to the creek bed below, rocks, dirt, his back snapping on landing, a scream cut short, black swallowing his sight. The sedan screeched, swerving, Dennis's hands yanking. Shit! The Ford spinning, scraping the rail, then tearing north, taillights fading, his breath ragged. He's down! A fleeting thought, panic driving him on. Tommy Reed staggered miles back, roadside dust on his jeans. Den, no! His yell lost, hands up as backup roared past. Units 216, 219, lights flashing. Suspect north, officer down. Their sirens a wail chasing the night. Patrick lay still, crumpled on the creek bed, blood pooling under his head, his cap gone, his radio crackling. Unit 214, Pat, respond. Amy's voice a plea, silence his answer, pain a tide drowning him. Backup screeched to the bridge. Officer Jess Carter, a wiry vet, leaping out. Where's McCardy? Her shout sharp, spotting the rail's gap. Down there! Officer Nate Klein, young and green, slid down the bank. Pat! Oh, God! His hands shaking, finding Patrick, pulse faint, back twisted. He's alive. EMS now. Carter radioed. Officer down. Bridge on 30, mile 19. Critical. Her voice steady. Klein kneeling. Hang on, man. Help's coming. Patrick's gasp. Get him. A whisper through blood. His green eyes fluttering. A cop broken. A chase ended in ruin. The sedan roared on. Dennis's hands trembling. What did I do? His mind a fog. The gun lost. Tommy's face flashing. A friend he'd saved. A cop he'd crushed. A flight he couldn't outrun. Highway 30 stretched. Dark, unforgiving. The bridge a scar behind. Backup closing. A net he'd hit soon. At home, Jenna set Liam's plate, lasagna cold, her phone silent. Late again, she murmured. A trust teetering. A call she'd dread by midnight. On the creek bed, Patrick faded. Jenna, Liam, his breath a thread. The fall a moment that broke him. A dawn he'd fight to see. Sirens wailed. EMS minutes out. The bridge a silent witness. The night heavy with what was. A cop's life upended. A friend's choice betrayed. A fall echoing loud. The night pressed heavy over Carroll, Iowa, on March 5th, 2021. The clock ticking past 7 p.m., as Highway 30's bridge overpass stood silent, its steel rails glinting under the red and blue strobe of police cruisers, a grim stage where Officer Patrick McCardy's life had just shattered. Below, in the dry creek bed, Patrick lay crumpled, 32, his red hair matted with blood, green eyes closed, his broad frame twisted at an angle no body should hold, his uniform torn, badge glinting faintly in the dirt. The 20-foot fall, back broken, vertebrae cracked, had stolen his breath, his scream fading into a stillness pierced by Officer Nate Klein's yell. He's alive! EMS now! His young hands trembling as he knelt. Hang on, Pat! Officer Jess Carter stood atop the bridge, her wiry frame taut, her voice sharp over the radio. Unit 216, officer down, mile 19, critical. Where's that ambulance? Her eyes scanning the creek, the sedan's taillights long gone. Dennis Gear's flight a shadow they'd chase. Unit 214, Pat, respond. Dispatch crackled. Amy's plea unanswered, the silence a knife twisting deeper. EMS sirens wailed closer, 7:03 p.m., an ambulance screeching in, paramedics tumbling out. Down there! Klein waved, his boots slipping as he climbed back, Carter securing the bridge. Suspect north, Gray Ford! Her shout a thread pulling the night apart. In the creek, Paramedic Claire Voss dropped beside Patrick, her steady hands checking, pulse faint, breathing shallow. Spinal, get the board. Her team sliding a stretcher down, bracing his neck, lifting him with a grunt, his blood staining the rocks. He's out, move! She barked, the stretcher rattling up Patrick's gasp. Jenna! A whisper lost as they loaded him, lights flashing, the ambulance tearing for Carroll Hospital, 5 miles south. Klein sank to his knees. Jesus, he's bad, his voice breaking, Carter's hand firm. He's tough. Focus. Her calm a lifeline, the bridge a scar they'd carry. Miles north, Dennis Guer's Ford Focus swerved off 30 onto a county road, tires kicking dust, engine sputtering as he hit 60 miles per hour, his wiry frame shaking, dark hair plastered, hazel eyes wild. What did I do? His slur a panic. The gun lost. The crash flashing. Patrick's body airborne, a thump he'd felt. At 29, he was a fugitive breaking, warrant, whiskey, a friend's shield turned to ruin. His hands slick. Tommy's good. He's good. A lie he clung to. The cruiser's lights fading, then flaring. Unit 219 closing, pull over. A trap snapping shut. Dennis skidded. No, no! His foot slipping. The sedan spinning into a ditch, airbags bursting, his head cracking glass. Officer Dan Pike leapt from 219. Hands up! Out! His Glock drawn, Dennis stumbling free, blood trickling. Didn't mean it! His yell raw, hands high as Pike cuffed him. You hit a cop, asshole! Move! Backup swarmed. Tommy Reed's nabbed roadside. He made me. His plea thin, booked as accessory, his sandy hair dust-caked, blue eyes wide. I didn't know. A friend's loyalty, a chain he'd wear. Dennis Guer, arrested, mile 24, Pike radioed. The night's chaos caged, a cop's fall their cost, a drunk's flight their catch. At Carroll Hospital, 7:15 p.m., the ER buzzed, gurneys clattering, lights harsh, as Patrick rolled in. Male 32, spinal trauma, head injury. Voss shouted, doctors swarming. Dr. Ellen Hayes, gray ponytail tight. X-rays, stat, her hands probing. Patrick's back, a map of fractures. T12L1 shattered, blood pooling internal. Surgery, now, she snapped. He's bleeding out. Nurses hooked IVs, his pulse fading. Jenna, Liam, his murmur faint, eyes fluttering. A cop slipping under pain's tide. The waiting room stilled. Jenna McCardy bursting in, 30, her dark hair loose, her teacher's calm gone. Where's Pat? Her sob raw, Liam clinging. 5. Daddy okay? Chief Dan Ellis met her, his burly frame a wall. Jenna, he's hurt bad. Bridge fall, suspect hit him. His voice low, steady, her hands shaking. No, no, he promised he'd come home. Liam's green eyes, Patrick's, wide. Bad guys? His whisper small. Jenna kneeling. Daddy's fighting, baby. Her tears falling, Ellis's hand on her shoulder. He's tough. We're with him. Dr. Hayes emerged. Scrubs bloody. Surgery. He's critical. Vertebrae cracked. Year to recover. If he walks. Her prognosis a blade. Jenna's cry. Oh God. A mother's fear. A wife's world breaking. At the station, 8 p.m. Ellis briefed the force. 10 officers, faces grim. McCarty's down. Guer's in custody. Reed's too. His voice a growl. Hit and run on one of ours. Serious injury by vehicle. Carter nodded. Saw him go. Didn't stop. Her jaw tight, Klein pale. He was breathing. Barely. The bridges echo a weight they shared. He's family. Hold the line, Ellis said. The room silent. Patrick's scream. Get him. A ghost in their ears. A cop's steady life torn. A force reeling. A night they'd reckon with. Dennis sat in a cell, head in hands. Didn't mean it. His slur gone, blood drying. Tommy in another. I messed up. His whisper a haunt. Friends bound by a choice. A fall they'd wrought. Jenna held Liam, hospital lights cold. You're strong, Pat. Her prayer a thread, his badge on the stretcher. A toll immediate, a dawn deferred. Summer 2021 draped Carroll, Iowa, in a humid haze. The sun baking the split-level house on Oak Street where Officer Patrick McCardy lay in a hospital bed wedged into the living room. Its sterile hum a stark intruder among Jenna's bookshelves and Liam's toy cars. It was June. 3 months since the bridge fall on March 5th had shattered his back. Vertebrae T12, L1 cracked, spinal cord bruised, surgery stitching him with pins and rods. And Patrick, 32, was a cop grounded. Red hair graying at the temples, green eyes dim with pain, his broad frame wasted under blankets, legs still, hands clenching a stress ball. "Gotta walk for Liam," he grunted, his voice a rasp. Jenna's lasagna a memory he couldn't taste. His badge shelved on the mantel. Jenna McCardy, 30, hovered, dark hair tied back, her teacher's calm, frayed, her hands steady as she adjusted his pillow. "You're doing it, Pat. Slow." Her voice a lifeline, her eyes red from night's pacing. Liam, 5, sat cross-legged. "Daddy's a superhero." His tow-headed grin a fuel, his drawings, cops in capes, taped to the wall, a boy's faith Patrick clung to. Surgery at Carroll Hospital had saved him. Internal bleeding stemmed, bones fused. But Dr. Ellen Hayes's words lingered. Year to recover if he walks, a prognosis he defied with every squeeze, every curse. Damn bridge, damn gear. His anger a fire stoking the climb. By July he moved, hospital to rehab, a center 20 miles east in Ames, a sterile sprawl of weights and mats where physical therapist Mia Chen, wiry and blunt, pushed him. "Up, McCardy, 2 steps today." Her clipboard a whip, his wheelchair a cage. Patrick grunted. "Legs. Move." Sweat beading, his arms trembling on parallel bars, Jenna watching. "You've got this." Her hand on Liam's shoulder. "Daddy's strong." 1 step, 2. His back screamed, pins biting. "For you, bud," he gasped, collapsing back, Chen nodding. "Progress. Slow as hell, but there." A cop's body a battlefield, his will a weapon forged anew. Fall painted Carroll gold, the force rallying, fundraisers at Casey's, Chief Dan Ellis dropping checks. "You're one of us, Pat, always." His burly frame a pillar. Officer Jess Carter's visits a bomb. Kicked Gear's ass in court, her grin fierce. Dennis Gear, 29, face trial, August Carroll County Courthouse. Cuffed, wiry frame slumped, dark hair shorn, hazel eyes dull. "Didn't mean it." His plea a whisper, the .38 logged, his flight replayed on dash cams. Serious injury by vehicle, guilty 5 years max, Judge Lynn Carver's gavel a thud. "You broke a man, pay it." His sentence a chain, a drunk's chaos caged, a cop's fall avenged. Tommy Reed's 25 stood apart, probation, fined, his sandy hair lank, blue eyes hollow as he took the stand. "He said run, I messed up," his voice cracking, accessory a stain he'd wear. Free by September, he shunned bars. Dennis saved me, cost him. His guilt a haunt, a construction job his penance, his dad Jimmy's words. "Fix it, son," a spur he chased. Patrick heard it. Jenna reading news. "Gear's locked up, Tommy's out." Her tone soft, his nod grim. "Good, let him rot." His anger cooling, a cop's justice a thread he held, his climb a fight they'd lost. Winter 2021 chilled Ames, rehab a grind. Patrick on crutches. Step, Chen barking, his legs waking slow, nerves sparking. "Feel that?" Her question sharp, his grin faint. "Yeah, pins and needles." A cop rising, his back stiff, his frame filling out, muscle clawing back. Jenna drove weekends, Liam bouncing. "Daddy walks." His cheer a light, her hug a warmth. "You're halfway." Her faith a rock he leaned on. "Gotta get home," Patrick said, his voice steadier, the wheelchair gone, crutches a bridge to normal, a year stretching. Dr. Hayes's "if" a taunt he'd beat. Spring 2022 bloomed Patrick home, crutches swapped for a cane, Oak Street alive with Liam's laughter. "Kick the ball, Daddy!" A wobbly pass, his back groaning. "Easy, bud." His chuckle raw, Jenna's lasagna warm again. "Tastes better now." Her smile a gift. Therapy lingered, twice weekly, Ames a trek. But he drove. Cruiser traded for a pickup. "Not the same," he muttered, his badge a weight he missed. Desk duty a whisper. Chief Ellis floated. "When you're ready," a cop's life a thread he'd reweave. "I fell. Gotta climb," he told Jenna. Her nod. "You are." A vow they lived. A family bending, not breaking. In prison, Dennis wrote, "Sorry, man. Lost my head." His scrawl shaky. Patrick tossing it. "Too late." His voice flat, pity creeping. "He chose it. I didn't." A cop's anger a coal cooling slow. Tommy hammered nails. "Don't run." His mantra to co-workers, a lesson carved deep, a friend's fall a mirror he faced. The department held, Carter's quips, Klein's growth, Ellis's pride. A force Patrick anchored. His climb a tale retold, a toll easing, a dawn inching near. Winter 2022 closed. Patrick at the window, snow falling, Liam asleep, Jenna's hand in his. We're good. Her whisper soft, his cane by the door. Yeah, getting there. His voice a promise, a cop's steady world a peak he'd scale, a fall he'd outlast. Spring 2023 unfolded over Carroll, Iowa, its gentle breeze rustling the new leaves along Oak Street, where Officer Patrick McCardy stood on his porch, cane in hand, the morning sun glinting off the faded scar on his temple. It was late April, 2 years since the bridge fall on March 5, 2021, had broken his back, vertebrae fused with rods, a limp his badge of survival, and Patrick, now 34, was a cop reshaped. Red hair streaked gray, green eyes steady but shadowed, his broad frame leaner, steadied by the cane's tap. The split level hummed, Jenna's coffee brewing, Liam's chatter, now 7, a tow-headed spark, his life a thread rewoven, a climb complete, a choice haunting still. He'd returned to the Carroll Police Department in March, light duty, desk work. Not the same, he admitted, his voice a low drawl as he shuffled files, his badge pinned again, a weight he'd missed. Chief Dan Ellis had clapped his shoulder. You're back, Pat. Take it slow. His burly frame a pillar, pride in his growl, the force of family that held him. Jess Carter's quips, Nate Klein's nods, a cop down, not out. Gotta walk for Liam, he'd told Jenna, her dark hair brushing his cheek. You're doing it. Her pride a balm, her teaching days a rhythm they synced, a trust bent but mending, the bridge a ghost he faced daily. The station buzzed. Reports, radios, Patrick logging calls. Unit 216, cow on 30. His chuckle faint, his cane by the desk, his back stiff but bending, a cop's steady hand on paper, not pavement. Miss the road? Carter asked, her wiry frame leaning in. Gears locked up. 5 years. Her grin a jab, his nod grim. Good, let him rot. His anger a coal cooling slow, a pity creeping. He chose it. Dennis Gear's letter, mailed from Iowa State Penitentiary February, sat unopened, then tossed. Sorry, man, lost my head. Its scrawl a plea Patrick ignored. Too late, his voice flat, a cop's justice a line he'd drawn. At home, Liam kicked a soccer ball. Daddy, watch, his cheer a light. Patrick's wobbly toss a win. Nice one, bud, his back groaning. Jenna's hug a warmth. You're enough, her whisper soft, a family forged anew. Therapy lingered, once weekly, Ames a trek, his pickup rumbling. Not the cruiser, he muttered, his legs stronger. Cane a crutch he'd shed soon, a cop's life a thread he'd reclaim. Desks temporary, Ellis promised. When you're ready. A nod to patrol, a dawn he'd chase, the bridge looming in dreams. Rails fall, gears smirk, a scar he bore. A trust broken he'd rebuild. In penitentiary gray, Dennis Gear paced a cell 31, his wiry frame thinner, dark hair buzzed, hazel eyes dull. Gotta fix it, he muttered. His 5-year stretch a cage, parole a whisper in 25. Sorry, McCardy, he'd written, pen shaky. Tommy's face flashing, a friend he'd saved, a cop he'd crushed. His drunk's chaos a chain he'd forged, a warrant's flight a choice haunting loud. Didn't mean it, he told his bunkmate, a lie he lived, a gun lost, a crash replayed, dash cams on loop, a judge's gavel, 5 years a toll he'd pay, a man reckoning with what he'd sown. Tommy Reed's 27, hammered nails on a Carroll site. Construction, sun on his sandy hair, blue eyes clear but heavy. Probation done, fines paid, don't run, his mantra to co-workers, a lesson carved deep. Dennis saved me, cost him, he told his dad Jimmy over coffee. Messed up bad, his voice low. A friend's fall a mirror he faced, bars avoided, a job earned, a haunt he'd carry. Fix it, Jimmy said, his mill-closed hands rough, and Tommy nodded. Trying. His choice a weight, a trust he'd betrayed, a cop's pain a debt he'd owe, a life he'd steer straight. Patrick drove 30 daily, bridge in view, rails glinting. I'm back, he murmured. Cane aside, his pickup steady, the fall a memory he wrestled, Anger fading, pity rising. Gears locked, Tommy's free. A balance he'd accept. Jenna taught. Kids ask about you. Hero cop. Her smile warm. Liam's hug a fuel. You're the best. A boy's faith a spark. A cop's steady world a peak he'd scaled. Miss the action, he told Carter. Her nod. You'll get there. A desk a pause. A road a call. A trust in routine a ghost he'd mend. The force held. Ellis's plaque, strength in service, hung. McCarty's tale, tough as hell. Klein's grin a nod. A cop's fall retold. A warning lived. Dennis stared at bars. Fix it. A vow hollow. Tommy swung a hammer. Don't run. A choice solid. Patrick sat with Liam. I'm here. A promise kept. The bridge stood. Traffic flowed. A cop's life a thread re-knotted. A haunting choice a coal dimming. A dawn he'd claim slow. Spring 2025 bloomed over Carroll, Iowa, its golden light spilling across the soccer fields behind Carroll High, where Officer Patrick McCardy stood on the sidelines, his cane a forgotten relic leaning against a bench. It was late May, 4 years since the bridge fall on Highway 30 had shattered his back, and Patrick, now 36, was a cop reborn. Red hair streaked gray, green eyes bright with purpose, his broad frame steady, a slight limp his only echo of that night. The air hummed with kids' shouts, grass underfoot, and Patrick's whistle. Run it left, Liam! His voice a warm drawl, his son, 9, darting with a tow-headed grin, a soccer ball spinning, a father's pride a flame rekindled. Jenna McCardy, 34, sat in the bleachers, her dark hair loose, her teacher's smile soft as she graded papers. He's got your fight, Pat. Her nod a bond, their split level on Oak Street a haven, lasagna warm, Liam's toys a mess, a trust forged anew through pain. Keep moving. Patrick's motto etched in his gait, his badge back on patrol, light shifts, no chases. Chief Dan Ellis's nod. You're ready. A cop's steady world reclaimed. The bridge a shadow he'd outrun. Missed this, he told Jenna, her hand in his. You're enough. Her whisper a rock, a family whole beyond the fall. At the Carroll Police Department, the plaque, strength in service, hung proud. Patrick's tale retold. McCarty's tough as nails. Jess Carter grinned, her wiry frame a constant. Nate Klein now a vet. You showed us. A force stronger for his climb. Desk was a pit stop, Patrick said, cruiser keys in hand. Roads home, his limp a badge, his back stiff but bending. A cop who'd fallen and risen, a dawn beyond the dark. Gears up soon, Carter noted. Parole a whisper, Patrick's shrug. He chose it. Anger gone, a pity settled, a trust in justice a line he'd held. In Iowa State Penitentiary, Dennis Gour, 33, paced his cell, wiry frame leaner, dark hair buzzed, hazel eyes clearer. Parole nearing, October 25. 4 years served of 5, gotta fix it. His vow a thread, a drunk's chaos, a lesson carved deep. Sorry, McCarty, he'd written again, unmailed. Tommy's face. Saved, lost, a ghost. The bridge crash, a reel he'd replayed. A gun lost, a cop down, a choice he'd mend. I'll work, stay clean, he told his counselor, a job waiting. Factory small. His flight's toll a weight he'd lift. A man beyond bars, a hope he'd chase. Tommy Reeds, 29, stood at Carroll's Youth Center, sandy hair under a cap, blue eyes steady as he coached teens. Don't run, his mantra firm, a construction gig traded for mentorship, a mistake redeemed. Dennis took the hit. I owe him, he told Jimmy, his dad's nod. You're fixing it. A friend's fall, a mirror turned to light. Probation faded, fines paid, a haunt he'd turned to purpose. McCarty walks. I saw him, he said. A nod to Patrick at Casey's. He's good, a debt unspoken, a trust betrayed now a lesson lived, a life steered true. Patrick coached, Liam's team a blur. Go, Dad! His son's cheer a spark, his limp easing, getting there, his grin raw, the cane a memory, therapy done. His pickup rumbling 30 daily, bridge in view, rails glinting. I'm here, a cop's vow, a dad's truth. Jenna taught, kids love your story, hero cop. Her pride aglow, Liam's hug a fuel. You're the best. A boy's faith a fire, a cop's steady hand a thread rewoven. Back on patrol, he told Ellis. Light runs, good enough. His badge a shield, A trust in routine, a peak scaled. A fall outlasted. The department honored him. Plaque polished, McCarty's our rock, Klein's toast at a barbecue, Carter's laugh, tougher than gear, a force bound by his rise, a warning lived, choices cut deep. Dennis packed, parole papers, fix it, a promise solid, Tommy tossed a ball. Stay straight. A choice firm, Patrick drove, bridge behind, I'm good, a life reclaimed. Highway 30 flowed, cornfields green, traffic steady, a town that bore its scars but bloomed, a cop's echo, a light shining strong. At dusk, Patrick sat with Liam. Bad guys lose, right? His son's question small. Yeah, bud, most times. His arm around him, Jenna's smile warm. We're safe. A family beyond the bridge. A trust rebuilt. A dawn breaking clear. Dennis stepped toward freedom. I'll make it right. Tommy guided kids. I'm here. Patrick patrolled. Keep moving. Lives woven from a night's thread. A choice haunting faded. A legacy of resilience rising tall. 4 years after that fateful night on Highway 30, Officer Patrick McCardy stands on the sidelines of his son's soccer game, his cane now just a reminder of the battle he fought and won. He is not the same man he was before the fall. He is stronger, wiser, and proof that even in our darkest moments there is a way forward. His journey back was long and painful, but with determination, family, and an unwavering spirit, he reclaimed his life. Across town, Tommy Reeds teaches young kids about choices, hoping they never repeat his mistakes. And in a prison cell, Dennis Gewer counts the days until he steps into the real world again, carrying the weight of the night that changed everything. Life doesn't give us second chances. It gives us the opportunity to create them. Patrick's story is not just about survival, but about resilience, redemption, and the power of never giving up. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the choices we make and the lives they impact, hit that subscribe button. There are so many more real-life stories waiting to be told. Stories of hope, struggle, and the strength of the human spirit. Don't miss out.